Hello and welcome to this episode of Beyond the Hype podcast, brought to you by the National Movement of Catholic Students, the Jesuit Youth Office and Jesuit Communications. My name is Rashell Nherera, and on this program we are having conversations on the things that has been happening in our beloved country and also in our church. On the 14th of August 2020, the Zimbabwe Catholic Bishops actually had a pastoral letter that came out, which was named "The March is Not Ended." And for a long time, these pastoral letters were being written, and this pastoral letter per se was meant to handle the situation that we are currently having today. It was meant to not the many concerns that the Zimbabwean people have been having. The pastoral letters sort of raised issues we know and we have been experiencing in Zimbabwe. To discuss this, I have a very young Jesuit priest. Yes, I mean young in terms of ordination. I have Padre Frank Tauwona. Father, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
You had a quite different ordination. You had an ordination during the lockdown. How was it? Tell us, how was the experience? Most people didn't know that we even had an ordination.
Yeah, actually I liked it that way. Personally, since I'm pretty much introverted, so the smaller the crowd, the better. So we were actually being nicknamed the COVID priests, the COVID fathers.
All right.
But maybe, just like as you have said, maybe I'm a lockdown father.
Okay, so let us begin this conversation by looking at what the church is. Who makes up the church? Where do you and me fit in the church?
So maybe we can start by talking about the church as a group of Christians, people who believe in Jesus, in God, and then we can also now expand and say, or before expanding, we can reduce a little bit and go to the foundation of what the church is. So the foundation of the church is found in the family. So when you have a family which is Christian, then that family is the foundation of the church, is the church. But of course, it also then means even when two friends meet, they're a church. When we as individuals, we are having a conversation like this, we also become a church. So the church is not limited to the hierarchy, to say we have the Pope, the cardinals, the bishops, and us. That is one way of understanding the church. But the most fundamental is when you are just by yourself in the room and you know you have people whom you love, whom you can connect with at any time.
Okay, so now that we understand that the institution of the church starts with the institution of the family, where one is coming from, and then we have the hierarchy of the Pope, the bishops. Maybe that can take us into pastoral letters. In the words that an ordinary person can actually understand, can you try and explain to us what a pastoral letter is, how it is written, who writes it, and why is it written?
So yes, pastoral letter is a letter. So it's an official letter representing the official position of either a diocese or an episcopal conference, that is a group of dioceses. So a bishop can write an official letter to his specific diocese. That's also a pastoral letter. Okay. But a group of bishops can come together, like the Zimbabwe Commission of Catholic Bishops. So that one, they can also gather together and discuss and write something. And when they are doing that, normally they also engage different stakeholders. They engage different professionals. Economists, it can be political scientists, people in developmental science, moral theologians, different people who, when they give their own input, then they are also actually helping the bishops in reflecting on the different matters.
All right. Okay. So before we get into the pastoral letter, The church, we know we have the commission. For those who don't know, we have what is called the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace. This commission looks into social, political, economic issues which are happening in the country and maybe of the world. What is it the church has been doing in terms of maintaining peace and justice in the country, particularly our country, Zimbabwe?
Yes. So the history of advocacy is like as old as the church itself. So that is why when you are reading, for instance, the book of Revelation, that's more like, to some extent, you can think about it as a cryptic pastoral letter, because it was attacking Nero, attacking the leadership, the Roman leadership of that time, which was pretty harmful to the poor and to the Christians. Persecution. So that is our pastoral understanding of letter writing, and advocacy is as old as Christianity itself. Then specifically within Zimbabwe, it goes even to the colonial times. Around 1946, the Jesuits established a certain magazine called The Shield, which was attacking the colonial rule and advocating for the, let's say, for the involvement of the black Africans into leadership and economy. And around 1959, the Swiss missionary brothers, it was a group of missionaries from Switzerland, they established the Motto magazine, which was very, very much anti-government, we can say, and it continued even after independence to be to attack. By anti-government, I mean when the government is wrong, and then it attacks the wrong in the government. So this is that old. And then the Pastoral Letters, from around the 50s, Pastoral Letters were being written. But we can even talk about now from the word go in 1980 on our independence. We had the pastoral letter, Welcome Zimbabwe. And from that word go, as much as it was congratulating us for independence, it was actually even giving suggestions to say, how should we allow for good governance, for equality. And then, we really have a lot. Now there's just the hype of saying, as if this current letter, the march is not ended. It's as if it's probably the first, but we had a lot of them. I'll give an example. Around 2007, God hears the cry of the oppressed. The pastoral letter was actually imagining Mugabe being another pharaoh, which means Zimbabweans, just like Israelites, were supposed to be saved from that pharaoh, Mugabe. So which means this has always been with us. As part of that advocacy has always been part of the church.
Looking into the pastoral letter, what are the key messages that are coming out of it?
So basically, I'll say, of course, the major one is the invitation to continue marching. How do you march? Continue advocating, continue clamoring, continue pushing the government to do something about the state of hell which we are in, so that we move from it and we're in a state of exodus, going towards God, going towards a city of God, heaven on earth, a beautiful country of happy people. That's very first important. And of course, the many things within it, the economic criticism, the political criticism, which is there. I think it's pretty much cliche. I think everybody have an idea. But what I would find to be very interesting is how the letter, and maybe this can be pretty much one thing to consider more, how the letter defines prophecy. Currently most of the people, the normal, ordinary people, they consider if you're a prophet, you have these magical powers, you know, or you don't have a husband, okay, then they pray for you. And
just miracles everywhere.
Yeah, miracles, magic. I consider it as magic. So, yeah, and a lot of lying and manipulation which happens with that. It's not prophecy. The letter defines prophecy as, you know, when people like Micah and many of the prophets were the champions of the poor and the oppressed, they use brutal honesty, you know, to communicate the message of justice and mercy. That is what prophecy is. That is what you find in the likes of Jeremiah, which the letter also quotes. You find it if you read the whole of the book of Amos, the Micah itself, which the letter quotes. And it also says confrontation is one of the toughest tasks of leadership, in this case prophetic leadership. So, you know, the true prophets were exposing the hypocrisies. That's what the letter also says, exposing the hypocrisies both within false prophets and within leaders. So that is what the letter does. You know, it goes against the politicians giving false promises. You know, it's about even saying, okay, you're giving people T-shirts. Just an example, you're giving people political T-shirts, but then at the same time, you can print T-shirts, but you cannot make face masks for people. You know, you also, for instance, can buy big cars, because big cars will seem like, if you have diplomats and the big cars are driving the diplomats for a meeting in a museum, it will seem like everything is okay. But you cannot afford to buy ambulances. So the prophecy there is to unearth the hypocrisy and say, yes, you have these big cars, but you don't have ambulances for the people. That's what prophecy is about. And this prophecy is not limited to the bishops or to the priests or to the religious. It's, as I was saying earlier, our definition of Christianity, of the church, prophecy includes, which again I liked in the letter, when they were now talking about heroes without guns. These are prophetic voices, like we had Mapfumo, that's what it talks about, right? Thomas Mapfumo, and we can talk about Bob Marley. But who are our contemporary non-clerical prophets? We have the likes of Winky D, Winky D, the singing Gemma, that's contemporary prophecy. This one, the one who dresses funny, like a mad person, Van Choga, Van Choga will be like, Mazono waskana nomira magesare kuchiborani, you know, the girls are waiting for electricity was there by the bowl, which shows that there is no running water in the houses. Exactly. That's what it says, you know. Yeah. All that. So, this amazing kid, Poptin, is saying this powerful song, Freedom. Damn, I wonder why it can't be number one in our charts. These are the prophets. So the prophecy goes beyond the pastoral letter. It goes beyond what the Bible tells us. In the Bible, you see, we take the Bible seriously, but the Bible was people of their contemporary times addressing their contemporary issues, which means, strictly speaking, these contemporary prophetic voices in the future, they are going to also be maybe quoted as the religious or Christian voices for prophecy. So that topic of prophecy is very powerful. And I would say it goes, the likes of Tetra was representing Oposhimano. It also goes to prophecy. Okay, let's talk about what I can consider as universal prophecy. Every face of a poor, struggling person is communicating a voice that we are in a state of crisis. So when you meet a struggling person in the street, or when you meet your mom at home and she's stressed about the economy, about her job which is lost, a youth who is struggling to find a job, all those people are prophetic faces, are prophetic voices, because they are targeting to say there is something wrong with the system. When the church builds schools and hospitals, it is being prophetic, because it is trying, for instance, to build broken people into stronger people who can shape the future. All that is prophetic. So, yeah. And so...
When you talk of Amos, I remember there's this verse when he says, woe unto you who stamp on the poor for a pair of shoes. Isn't it the same message that the bishops are saying? Maybe we can get into asking the reverence of the issues being raised by the bishops.
The church is always at all levels, to the grassroots level. Why? You see, because we have parish priests who are everywhere, in all the parishes where the parishioners are struggling, be it in the rural areas, be it in the ghetto, be it anywhere, and they hear confessions, and they counsel people, and they see they are running children's homes, schools where kids are coming to school hungry. They are not wasting time in parliament doing nothing as our politicians do. They just go and do nothing.
Yeah,
right? They're there on the ground to understand what is happening. And that is why it cannot be more real than what the Pastoral Letter says. And of course, I would then say we also have to take caution. False prophets are not just the politicians, but even we hear there were some pastors who were challenging to the letter said, no, why are bishops being political? And then you'll be like, that's what it is. The Charism says human beings are by nature political beings, which means in all that we do, somehow there is a dimension of, just like universal prophecy, we are universally political beings. When a church builds a school and a hospital, it is indicating that there is a crisis because the government itself cannot fully do it, and we're doing it. That's what, it cannot be more political than that. So whatever we do ultimately is political. When people are losing a job, that's political because it is indicating that things are not well politically. So the false prophets, who were criticizing the letter, we have to be careful about them. But the false prophets are not only outside the church, even within the church. We also, and we're supposed to be careful, we also have some of our fellow priests, religious people, and some of our respectable Christians who are criticizing.
So, coming back to the Pastoral Letter, how does it fit into the Catholic social teachings? How is the vision, the mission of the Catholic social teachings and the Pastoral Letter come together to be one?
Yes, so the Pastoral Letter is more like the contextualizing of the Catholic social teachings, because Catholic social teachings, they are it's a focus on the different dimensions of social well-being, advocacy, etc. So that justice, that love, that development which Catholic social teachings advocate for in the universal church, the Pastoral Letter narrows them to the specific conditions, circumstances within a country like here in Zimbabwe, and that is what ultimately is important within the Catholic social teachings. And it's also a narrowing to say, yes, Catholic social teachings, they're basically a collective of experience, not only of different cultures, different places in the world, but different times. But the Pastoral Letter also now focuses and make the Catholic social teachings specific to that time, so that place and that time. Our circumstances right now, in 2020, the year of COVID-19, what is happening? There, we need the marching. There, it's more specific.
All right, Father. Any last words that you want to leave the young people of the ordinary Zimbabwe on the streets? As young people, we have so many streets. The streets that you're usually on, we call them the Wi-Fi streets. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Last words on the social media streets,
Yes. Make sure that you find the prophetic voice in the social media. Hashtag Zimbabwean Lives Matter. That's a powerful term. It's pretty much like a prophet writing the whole book of Amos. Zimbabwean Lives Matter. It's pretty much biblical. It's pretty much prophetic. Listen to that. When you're busy listening to music, don't just be excited about music and maybe without getting deep into the message. Listen to what it is saying. And can you reflect on it and grow? When you listen to Goliath, when Jabreza is singing, Goliath, you got married to Goliath. Can you imagine that probably this was the case which happened in 1980? So this is just not a love song, It is a song which says Zimbabwe, when it got married to a certain regime, when it thought it was now independent, it was married to death. See, so let us be more critical, but I also encourage, be more, create the reading culture. Our church is traditionally an intelligent and an intellectual culture, an intellectual church. Read. Don't be told by false prophets like Mutrangwa, right? To say, saying a lot of stuff about the Kukurawans, which is really wrong, right? She is the one who was creating hate speech, right? So if you read for yourself, you listen and you understand what it is talking about, instead of just waiting for false prophets to tell you what is happening. Take action, right? And then probably lastly, the letter also talks about something very, very important. What it's called, it says the globalization of indifference. Here it is talking about just criticizing, for instance, the capitalistic dimension. But capitalism in this case is not only limited, for instance, to the big people, The globalization of indifference, being indifferent, being carefree about the well-being of the other. It includes to say, even when a poor person has suffered a lot, he or she would even stop caring more about the neighbor because he or she is just thinking, I want to make ends meet. And then that's when you realize people committing crimes. So for you to avoid being, fully swallowed by this globalization of indifference, by poverty, have a moment to reflect. Reflect on the letter, reflect on your situation, reflect on yourself to say, am I not fully losing myself into poverty right now? Because if we don't reflect, we end up being carefree. We don't care about the happenings of other people, don't care about our moral foundation, which is another very important part which the letter is talking about.
Wow, thank you very much. Father, you've managed to make me understand a whole lot of things that I did personally, and I hope that most people, everyone who is going to listen to this podcast, who are going to watch this podcast, are going to learn a lot like what I just did. Thank you very much for coming to the program, Father.
Thanks a lot, Rashell.
There you had it, guys. We're discussing the pastoral letter. The match is not ended. I hope you keep watching. Please share this video with your friends and family. Let everyone know what has been happening. From me, Rashell Nherera. It's bye.